Let's get started here a little bit about last night. I was at the Poway City Hall. It's kind of like a night at the museum, but for me, it was an evening at the Poway City Hall. And I haven't been to a city hall meeting or a city council meeting in quite a while. But I really wanted to go to this because, I kind of made a big point that this meeting was important, this June 6th meeting, mostly because they were going to be deciding on the process on how to replace resigning Poway Councilman Barry Leonard. And so I wanted to go to that. And we're going to talk about that particular topic about the replacement versus the appointment or the vote in just a minute. But I just generally speaking, it was kind of cool to go to a city council meeting because I haven't been to one in a while. And it's nice to see, some friends, people, I got the chance to see Pete Neild. He was there. And Yuri Bolin was there, who's been a frequent guest also on this podcast. Got to meet a number of other people who I didn't know that were listeners or viewers of my podcasts or my videos. And so it was kind of nice, just to, make that connection. And there's one particular lady came up to me and she shook my hand and she says, "Oh, I like what you're doing with your podcast. You need to be doing more of this." She goes, "And I agree with a lot of what you say." He goes, "But I don't agree with everything." And I'm like, exactly. If we all lived in a world where everybody agreed with everybody else, it'd be a pretty boring place to live, a boring life to live. So variety makes, variety of commentary and opinions is a good thing in a robust society. That's part of the reason I have this podcast, is to encourage more of that conversation and more of that dialogue, particularly here in my hometown. But it was just generally kind of a positive event, to go to this. But I'll tell you what, the agenda itself didn't have a whole lot on the agenda. And the meeting was just dominated by public comment, whether they were speaking in the public comment in the initial phase of the city council meeting or the public comment around specific agenda items. And for the most part, everybody was just kind of angry at city council. There's a little, Yuri Bolin kind of praised city council on a few things, but for the most part, most of the speakers got up there and they were expressing their concerns, and it was all done politely, professionally. But they had an opinion on some things. They had opinions on issues that were, in conflict or appear to be in conflict with the direction of the city or some of the city council members. And so this is part of democracy. And this is kind of the cool thing where people have a chance to speak and a chance to be on the record. And we saw a lot of that last night. I thought that was fantastic. But it was a little bit odd. I don't know if you could tell by looking at the photo on my live stream screen, but I grabbed a snapshot from one of our local news channels, Fox 5, and there's a picture of the council meeting, and you see them up on the dais, and there are 5 chairs, but there's only 4 of those chairs are occupied, because Barry Leonard resigned, so his seat is open. But from left to right, there was Brian Pepin, who was recently elected in District 1, and then Caylin Frank in District 4, followed by Peter DeHoff, who's in District 3, who's my representative, and then the empty chair for District 2, and then finally Mayor Steve Vaus. But it was just kind of interesting to see that, where now there's only 4. But still, they got to work towards getting a majority. And another kind of an angle to this is that there's another gentleman here in town. I won't reveal his name, but he had been considering running for District 2 in the next election or as part of this appointment process. And then he finally came to a conclusion that he wasn't going to run because he just saw that the job, for these city council members and the mayor up on the dais is being very time consuming and frankly being pretty frustrating and difficult and stressful. And yeah, that's true. I'll tell you what, when I was looking at, those that were up there on the dais, they obviously all take their job very seriously. They all have a point of view. They're all very diplomatic, but you can tell that, this is a job that's not to be taken lightly. I think one of the other outgoing city council members said that these guys put in typically at least 20 hours a week into this job. So it's like a part-time job. They get paid very, very little. In fact, I think, what is their stipend they get? It's around $1,000 a month. And I'm sure if you did the math, it would probably be less than minimum wage if they were putting in 20 hours a week. So you know, tip of the hat to, or tip of the cowboy hat to those that actually have stepped up and stepped into the arena to serve. But, it's a tough job. And, you're up there on the die, you're going to be a critic. There's going to be people firing shots at you. There's a little bit of that coming from public comments. And frankly, I do a little bit of that in my podcast, but it was just kind of cool to be there. And so for those of you that I did see at the meeting, hey, nice to see you. And Ed Franklin on the live stream already saying, looks like Barry was not there. And yeah, you're right. Barry wasn't there. So they are now figuring out how they're going to replace him. So let's talk